Welcome to this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni. Today we are talking with Justin Kern from the Red Cross. We have Andrew Whitman from the Waupaca Fire Department, and we have Diana Flatoff from the Waupaca Police Department. We're going to be talking about a few different areas of safety that we really want to take a look at and be aware of as we go into the summer. And our first area is something that really interests me, I think because it is something we all want to do, and that is fires. We don't want our houses to burn down, but we want to have fires in the backyard, right?
Sure, nice campfire.
Summertime, sure.
Cookout, yeah.
Absolutely. You make s'mores with the kids, and then you sit down with your friends and you have a few beers and you just kind of enjoy the evening. I mean, it's very common whether you live in the city or the country. And we're going to talk about not only the rules associated with how we can burn in the different areas, but we're going to talk about why those rules are important and what can happen if we don't follow them. So, Justin, we're going to start with Andrew. Sorry, we're going to start with you. You told me that you can talk a little bit about the DNR rules as far as fires as something that's a little bit wider topic.
Sure. So, when you think about fire season as far as grass fires and that type of stuff, we're in that season right now. And so the rules pertain to that area. And the DNR rules are anywhere between January 1st and July 1st. If the ground is not covered by snow, you have to have a burning permit. And that burning permit is just a one-time deal, and it's free. So you get one for the season, and then each day that you want to burn, you have to call their DNR hotline. And I don't know the number off the top of my head, but if you look at their website. So you call each day, and that message will tell you, is it okay to burn? Is there specific rules that day? Or is there things that you need to follow? So those are the rules that you need to follow at that point. Now, if you're going to burn a really big pile, I think it's 6 by 6 or bigger, then there's special permitting that you need to do. So whenever you're in doubt, the best thing to do is to call the DNR and make sure that you're following the rules appropriately.
Not only that, but we should be calling the DNR just to make sure there aren't any burn bans because it's too dry and we need to be watching weather conditions, right?
Well, that's what that number's for. So that's why they want you to call every day. Before you had to get like a bunch of burning permits if you want to do it different times. Now they just want you to call in. So if there is a burning ban that day, it'll say that on that message. So if you for some reason you had a fire and it got out of hand and the DNR had to come, they're going to ask you if you called that day to follow the rules and that kind of stuff. So it's definitely something you want to follow the rules on.
You don't have to just wait for the Smokey the Bear sign to change on the side of the
highway.
highway.
Yeah, and I do see those, and those are nice, but with modern technology, they really want you to be calling every day that you're going to burn to make sure that you're following the rules.
So talk to us about Waupaca.
Well, for the city of Waupaca, we have not very strict guidelines, but there are guidelines and rules that need to be followed as well. Again, as Andrew stated, that it is the season for fires, and the city of Waupaca does allow recreational fires or warming fires. However, they can't exceed the size of 3 feet by 3 feet, meaning 3 feet in diameter or 3 feet high. Clean burning wood, again, just for the purposes of recreation and warming. If you want to burn beyond that, something like maybe brush or personal papers in an incinerator, you have to come down to the city police department or I believe City Hall and request a burning permit.
And how long is that permit good for?
The permit is good for 2 weeks and it's $5.
So it's not a lot of money?
No, not at all.
Okay. So I would assume that the burning permit really is about being aware of what you're doing as a citizen and telling and letting the fire department know that, so that if there is some kind of a call, at least you know what's
Sure,
happening?
I mean, it just offers guidelines, and again, it's, we're aware of them because we usually have a copy of it at the police department, and then, like I said, if we get calls referencing, fires that are out of the ordinary, such as a recreational warming fire, we can always look that up and see if it's, if they have a permit for it.
So I start the night with a 2x2 fire.
Okay.
And by 10 o'clock, it's the 3x3.
Okay.
And by 1 o'clock in the morning, it's a 6x6.
We're
right?
probably going to get a call.
Yeah, and then we'll probably get a call
Yeah.
too. So.
And then the wind picks up. Now what happens?
Well, I think that would get to us first. And so, yeah, fires do get out of hand sometimes. And most fires are unfortunately started by people and making mistakes. And things happen. And so we'll get there and do our best. But sometimes they do get out of hand. And sometimes, all three of us are working together to evacuate people ahead of the fire. Those are things that we train on every spring with the DNR is how do we set up groups to make sure we're getting everyone out of the houses with the police department, and then, what do we do with those people? And that's maybe where the Red Cross comes in is what happens to the people that get displaced by a fire that started at 2 by 2 feet and is now, 20 acres by 10 acres, which can happen very quickly.
I think actually there's probably a conversation when you're going to apply for those permits too, that you want to do some other preparation. Even if your house is, you've got 2-3 acres between your party zone and where your house is, you do want to talk with your family about a fire escape plan. You want to write that out, slap it on the fridge, and you want to check the smoke alarms in the house. You want to make sure that the battery's not gone or that someone didn't get annoyed one time and yank it because it was beeping.
Bad cooking.
Like I do.
Yeah.
I've burnt a few things.
Right. So that you have at least those early warning signs and you're preparing yourself on the front end.
Or a water resource close by.
Absolutely.
And I
You
was
want to stay a
gonna-
certain amount of feet away from structures when you're burning, have a water source available. Just like I said, just in case something starts getting maybe a little questionable, you're kind of on top of it so that you can be making that call and being as preventative as possible.
We have
Or
a fire pit in the middle of we have a huge backyard, but we have a fire pit in the middle of it, and it's all surrounded by dirt and it's pretty safe. If we're going to have a fire out there, we run hose from the house so that if it gets out of hand, because we've got pine trees, we've got grass on, then somebody just needs to run back and turn on the spigot, and we've got fire.
Yep.
We've at least got a hose, and it also puts out the fire at the end of the night, which I think is a topic that is worth talking about. Because we finish up our fire, we've been responsible, we've kept it small, we want to go to bed, it looks like it's pretty out, there's some red ashes, few in there, it's not a big deal. Is it?
Yeah, I think so, yes. I think there's something that does state that, you should attend all fires until they're completely extinguished because, again, wind changes during the evening, you just never know what could happen, which could then set it into a really egregious situation.
It really only takes one ember to get things going. I mean, we have been called to fires that, at first it looks like a structure fire or a barn fire or something like that, and we come to find out that earlier in the day they were burning behind there and thought they had it put out. It really takes one ember when the wind kicks up right or things, go the right but wrong way for you. That's happened multiple times. I've been on the fire department for 10 years, and I can think of a few times that has happened.
It's not a coincidence, right? I mean, the two, like we've all go to fires in the middle of the night. They don't happen just in the middle of the night because someone's cooking in the middle of the night. It's because you went to bed or you kind of lost awareness or thought something was taken care of.
Yeah, so I think the DNR says that you want it cool to the touch. If you can't touch it, when you think it's out, then it's not out enough.
And it can start up 24 hours later, because I had that happen to a friend of mine.
Sure.
It retains its heat for quite a while. So we talked about fires a lot. We're going to be doing a couple of more segments on some summer safety tips and things to keep us and our possessions safe. We will be right back with Justin, Andrew, and Diana. This is Joni, and you're watching What's Happening in Waupaca.
Whether enjoying a day of flying, group gatherings, one of 50 Cherokee Stash Cacher EAA professional pilots, supporting the community, our local businesses, aviation groups, and pilots of the future. We are the Waupaca Municipal Airport at Brunner Field.
Welcome back to this episode of What's Happening in Waupaca. We are talking with Justin Kern from the Red Cross. We're talking with Andrew Whitman from the Waupaca Fire Department and Diana Flatoff from the Waupaca Police Department. I'm glad you guys all joined me today because we're really talking about safety tips, and it's kind of specific to summertime, but they're tips and they're things that we should be aware of year-round for not only our personal selves and our family. So we're going to jump, we talked about fires, we're going to jump right into some property safety issues. And Diane, I'm just going to let you take the lead on this.
Okay, Joni. Well, one of the things that we see with the Waupaca Police Department at this time of year is a lot of an increase in property crimes. And again, a lot of that has to do with the weather. You've got nicer weather, kids and or people are staying out later at night. So what we like to stress to the community is things that seem common knowledge are sometimes overlooked because of the simplicity of it. So some of the things that we stress to people or individuals within the community is to always just be safe and secure in your home and your properties. Some simple things that you can do, always make sure that, you know, if you're home, everybody wants to enjoy the nice weather, but make sure that when you leave your house, especially on the first floors, that you lock your windows and doors. Another thing is make sure that when you're doing your spring cleaning right now, to make sure that you check. Motion lights are always great to have put in. They're inexpensive. They're nice to have. You want to light up your house in case somebody comes sneaking around. It lights it up, and you know, criminals don't like the light. So that's a good inexpensive way to protect your home. Another thing is to cut back on your shrubs and trees around your home. People, you know, they like to have that foliage, they like to have that privacy, but in the same sense, if your trees are getting too high by your windows and doors, it's also a nice place for people to conceal themselves so that they can gain entry into your home if you're following the rules of locking your doors and windows and so forth. We also suggest alarms or video cameras. Again, I mean, you go to Menards or Fleet Farm or anything like that, alarm systems, video systems are pretty inexpensive now. And you can access them from your cell phones, your smartphones, which is really nice. And they can alert you immediately if something's wrong, and you can then alert us, because the sooner we're made aware of something, the sooner we can act and prevent any type of property crime. I know that one of the things also that's important is make sure to lock your sheds, your exterior buildings. A lot of people want to leave those open because, again, it's one of those conveniences of, oh, I got to go do this, it's unlocked. But again, for your own protection, I guess, just make sure that it's locked up, and always remember to document the items that you have of value. A lot of things get lost, taken. Hard to recover if you don't really know what you have. Somebody comes in and says, my television was stolen. What kind of television was it? Well, I don't know. What's the serial number? I don't know. You know, it's important that you document serial numbers, VIN numbers, or take pictures, art, jewelry. You know, most jewelry don't have serial numbers, but if you have a picture, we can send those to the pawn shops and kind of see if we can track that stuff down for you.
Great. So do either of you have anything to add to that? Any ideas that you can think of that would add to the whole keeping your property safe kind of thing? I know that for me, you know, I live out in the country, and that's part of the danger, is that it's very easy for somebody to come on my property. And yet I tend to think I'm safer because I'm out in the country and I'm away from the city. And for me, I just have to tell you, for me, I don't like locks. I don't want to lock myself in or out to keep myself safe. But I will tell everybody that Diana's ideas are far better than mine. Just because I want to keep, my husband always says, it's to keep honest people honest. Because someone who really wants to get in is going to get in, but at least it takes the convenience out of it.
Right.
Right.
And a lot of these crimes that happen in the summer with these property crimes are crimes of convenience. I mean, they're not targeting, for example, they're not coming or targeting you or targeting Justin or Andrew or anything. It's, you know, just again, walking down a street, a simple checking of doors. The minute they find that one unlocked car door, that one unlocked shed door, they're in. They've got what they want. So that's why it's just important. Don't feel like you're being targeted or, well, nobody would ever do that to me. I'm such a nice person. I'm this and this. It's not about you sometimes. It's just the convenience of it.
Yep, I agree. So we're going to go straight from that, and we're going to talk about road construction, because this is important to everyone. road construction is, and I was teasing you guys earlier, saying that all of those construction signs on the roads are specifically meant to make me late for work. Not really. I mean, it's about more than that. It's about the people who are working on the sides of the roads.
Absolutely.
It's about the stopped traffic. So let's talk about that a little bit, as far as what do we need to do, what are the safety concerns, why are those signs up, and why are they up a mile or 3/4 of a mile before I actually get to people in the construction zones?
Sure. Again, the signs are out there. It's not to inconvenience the person who's on the roads that morning. It's not to set you back 5 minutes or anything like that. The signs are there, and they try to, like you said, they'll set up signs maybe a block or two ahead in the city to make you aware of what's going on. And if you're from the area, you know the alternate routes to take. But a lot of people still choose that, well, but I've always done it this way, or, well, I'll just sneak by real quickly. And it's not the point of sneaking by. The signs are there for a reason, and the signs aren't so that I can meet my quota, which never really happens. We don't have quotas. It's for the safety of the people that are out there working. It's just really important. They have their job they need to get done. There's large equipment out there. Their families, their family members, they're doing the best they can as quickly as they can so that the road gets open. And when people violate those signs, it just creates such a hazardous situation. And that's when we see like accidents happening, whether it's a worker getting hit by a vehicle, or, large machinery, because now they're paying attention to a car that's not there, and then maybe they hit a fire hydrant. The next thing you know, the fire department is being called because now they've got water spewing all over the place. But again, it's for the safety of the people that are out there working.
And if there's an accident in road construction, the fire department is always called.
Yeah, and so we kind of feel the same way about when we're out on the highway too for an accident. If we get called to a construction area or anywhere, we do the same types of things. We try to put signs out way in advance, so make sure you're paying attention to those. That big fire truck on the side of the road with its lights on is there for a reason. It's not so it just slows you down for a second. We're trying to make you aware of something that's down the road, so we'll do the same type of thing. And again, like she said, it's more about the people. We're trying to protect the accident scene. We're trying to protect the police officers. We're trying to protect the firemen, who all have families and need to go home to them. So, if you're in a construction zone or you're in an accident zone, it's the same thing. Slow down, get over, make sure you're obeying the rules and following the signs, and everyone will get to go home safely.
And that's the whole point. Yeah. So, as we wrap up this segment, it really is about, when I'm talking about property damage, it's more than somebody breaking into my house. It's somebody violating my privacy and my home and possibly taking something that I spent my hard-earned money on. Mm-hmm. That's why we lock our doors. We slow down in construction zones because every single year there are policemen, firemen, or construction people that are killed. And I don't say men, it's police officers and that are killed because the driver was not paying attention, the driver may have been drunk, they were texting, and the last thing that we want to be is the person who has to live with what we did for the rest of our life.
Sure. And I think you bring up a good point too, Joni, and I'm sure you see it. When something like this happens, people are so focused on what's going around them, they want to see what's happening, I mean, we're all, people are fascinated sometimes by the grotesque, but they need to stay focused on what's ahead. It's just, I don't know how many times I'm out at a scene and I've got somebody going up on Highway 10, 55, 65 miles an hour, slowing down maybe to 45. I'm on the highway, but they're looking this way as they're passing by.
Exactly.
Or they're holding their phone up
yes,
and videotaping.
Or videotaping.
Yeah.
You really got to be careful.
And you can't. And sometimes you'll see other family members in the car with them or something, and it's like, not only, again, are you risking our lives, you're also risking your own life and others that may be in the vehicle with you.
And if I live, I have just ruined the rest of my life.
Possibly. Yeah. Possibly.
Right? I mean, it's not only about jail time, it's about how do I live with that for the rest of my life. So that's what safety is all about. It's about keeping us safe, it's about keeping our families safe, and it's about being able to get through the day and not have to have something happen that we have to feel bad about literally for months or years or for the rest of our life. And as serious as that sounds, I think that that's something that we all need to keep in mind. We will be back with our final segment in just a moment. I am Joni, and you're watching What's Happening in Waupaca.
The Waupaca Recreation Center, featuring programming for all ages. Home of the Waupaca Senior Center and youth programming Friday and Saturday nights, featuring 2 full gyms and space for various sports and activities. Visit the Dance Exercise Studio for a variety of classes. The Rec Center is a safe place to hang out. Also featuring a computer lab and classes, and a meeting room and other facilities available for rent. The Rec Center features different programming and meetings, and is the home of the Parks and Recreation Office. The Waupaca Recreation Center, a great place for all ages and activities. 407 School Street, downtown Waupaca.
Welcome back to this episode of What's Happening in Waupaca. I am Joni. Again, we are talking with Justin Kern from the Red Cross. We're talking with Andrew Whitman from the Waupaca Fire Department, and we're talking with Diana Flatoff from the Waupaca Police Department. And we're covering all kinds of safety things for summer that I think is really important. We all go, yeah, we know those things, but you know what? Being reminded of them and being open to learning more is always very important. We're going to talk about summer storms because we are in tornado season, we are in severe thunderstorm season, we are at a time where we need to start thinking about what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, how do we prepare our families, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing that you guys are going to tell me is if the sirens go off, it means that a storm is very near and I shouldn't be outside with my camera.
You shouldn't be on your deck.
I shouldn't.
On your deck, if you see the funnel cloud, you should not be on your deck checking it out.
Darn it anyway.
I think one of the big misconceptions, and I'm sure you guys could speak to this too, is the difference between a warning and a watch. Sure. We hear that all the time where, people think that a watch is, you should be aware that you should be listening to the radio, watching TV, and you can kind of check out the sky, kind of check out what's going on, but you should be very aware that this could turn very quickly. A warning means one has been sighted. You should come off your deck. You should grab the pets, grab everyone you have into the basement.
Grab your bag.
Grab your bug out bag. Get into the basement. If you live in a mobile home or a high rise, you should have a prearranged shelter spot somewhere to go, because it will come and happen faster than you can imagine.
Yep.
So have a plan. Communicating ahead of time is a big part of that too. It's kind of like the fire thing. It's kind of like even just be generally aware ahead of time to keep yourself out of the trouble later on.
And if I need to travel to a safe spot because I'm on at a campground or because I live in a mobile home, I need to give myself extra time. So that's a good time to start thinking about getting out of there and
Yep.
gathering everybody together when the watch is issued.
You want to you'd rather have more time in that kind of situation than you're still standing on your deck when Auntie M is coming by on her bicycle. So more time is always better because it may look cool, but by the time those sirens are happening, you need to be somewhere safe.
Okay.
I mean, this is actually being filmed on the exact anniversary of when there was a tornado that came through there, deadly tornado. It killed a guy and it ruined a lot of people's homes and put a lot of their lives on hold. So it can happen very fast and it can happen pretty much anywhere in Wisconsin.
Yep.
So what are your roles as a fire department and as police officers when watches and warnings happen and when there's damage? Where do you guys step in and what do you do for people?
Well, for us, we do have certain rules. So as far as thunderstorms, if we get into a thunderstorm warning, we're going to get paged out to go down to the fire department and just be prepared and be on the ready in case things happen. So a lot of weird things can happen in storms. People's gas lines can get sheared off outside their house. There can be down power lines, which we do a lot of that as well. So that's what we do in that instance. As far as tornado watches and tornado warnings, if we get into that scenario, we're going to send trucks out to a couple certain points that we have in the city that are higher points that you can see a long ways, because we're going to be out there spotting for tornadoes, so that if we see something, we can let everyone know so the sirens can go off ahead of time and give people that time that they need. And then we kind of get into a response after the fact. I mean, we're going wherever the police need us or wherever we're getting paged out to go. So those are generally very busy situations for us, and I'm sure my wife really appreciates that I'm never home during any of that, and she gets to be in the basement by herself. But that's just
There
how
you
it
go,
goes.
with the kids and the cats and the
Yeah.
dogs and whatever else. I did not know that, this is interesting, I did not know that the fire department goes out and keeps an eye from,
Yep. Yep.
so you guys are behind when the siren goes off?
We're just one of the aspects. I'm sure the police department have places that they go as well. We set up, we try to go each direction. South of town, we're going to go out by the, I've sat in the high school parking lot before looking at storms and making sure nothing was coming. We'll go up by, back behind Kmart up there as well to kind of look that way. And we have a couple different places that we go, but we're just one of the people that are out there. I mean, the police don't go hide inside either, I'm sure. They have responsibilities as well.
Sure, and we're usually on, because we're usually already there, we're working, we're aware of what's coming into the area. So we're being actually proactive in the sense that once that weather starts coming in, so many other dynamics kick into place. We're constantly going from calls, whether it's alarms that are activated because of the storms,
Sure, yeah.
or the weathers, or like Andrew said, downed wires, trees down, branches down, road hazards. So a lot of times in these severe weather situations, we're not just sitting there, watching the rain go by or anything like that. We usually are responding to quite a few different things that people aren't aware of. And like I said, a lot of them are like alarms that are activating, because even though there is a storm in the area, if an alarm activates and you want to think to yourself, well, it's probably the storm that's causing it, we still have to respond. If a tree goes down or there's branches in the roadway, well, if they're, evacuating the area or people need to get out of a certain area, we have to make sure that those roads are clear so that they can do that. So we have to go in and make sure that that's done. So we'll get calls throughout these large storms, and we're just constantly going from one area to the next. And sometimes we do call in the fire department to assist us in these things, because it just starts,
Snowshoeing.
yeah, exactly. Even like the roads get flooded quickly when we have those downpours that come in, and you have vehicles then that get stranded, because the water levels are so high, and there's just a multitude of things that happen, and it's just working together, all of us, just to come together. And our comm center is really good about alerting us all and keeping us aware of what's going on.
So the safer I stay, and the more I make sure that me and my family are safe, the less calls the police and the fire department are going to have to answer to, except for everything else that's going on, you know what I mean? Which means that your job can be a little bit lighter.
Right, the more that you can do to help the situation helps us.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was,
Yeah.
you said that much better than I did. Thank you, Diana.
Being prepared, yeah. Those are
That's
the
right.
situations. A storm
That's right.
situation or tornado situation is really, when you're going to talk about the three of us working together, that's going to be that scenario. And like she said, we respond to calls as soon as the storm hits all the way through. So we're out there running around as well. And then if we need the Red Cross to come in and assist people, they're definitely there to help us as well.
And that's what the Red Cross does, is come in, and we hear about, the Red Cross going down to hurricanes or whatever, but you guys locally help families too.
Our top response is home fires, actually, and we're here for statewide disasters as well as national and international disasters.
So you have a bag full
I
of
got
stuff
a prop bag,
that
not
I'm
to be
gonna.
too much like Gallagher, but I do have a prop
Now,
bag.
it's full of all of my chocolate bars and everything I
It's-
really need to grab in a case of an emergency, right?
You may want a little bit of food in this, but you do want to make sure you have some basics, and I'm sure the two of you could speak to some other things that folks might want to have on hand, but you'll want to have important documents, so things like your social security card, some really basic stuff. Should you need to to leave your home, you might want to have this in your basement area as well. You want to have a plan, of course. You want to have first aid, medication, that kind of thing. It's one of the things that we deal with a lot when there is a home fire. Is one of the things we're able to help people get access to is medication from a pharmacist, because if you have something that you've filled an order for, that's not always something that can happen very quickly after the fact, especially after there's been a disaster. So you want to have your medication, your prescriptions there. You want to have a little bit of cash in this is a folio with some of your cash in there. But you want to
Let's see how much he's got.
Change of dry clothes and a poncho. I mean, this is going to be a storm, and that is the case a lot of times. Just a few other things. You'll want some water. You'll probably want a flashlight of some sort. This being Wisconsin, you'll want hand warmers, because even if it's summertime, like yesterday, it might be 42 degrees out at night. You'll want, if you can grab some gloves. What else do we have in here? I mean, these are just some examples of some things. I don't know if there's other stuff.
I love the duct tape.
There's duct tape.
There's
duct tape. I mean,
That's all you need, really.
Duct tape will fix a lot of things.
One of the world's best inventions.
If you've got kids, I mean, we bring this to a lot of times when there is a disaster situation, things to keep kids busy and kind of not thinking about the worst thing that's happening probably in their lives at that point.
I see you have a radio in there. I mean, that's a good thing to know what's going around in the community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially if power's out, one of the hand cranked radios if you can.
And because that's something to remember, is a radio is a good idea, because your cell phones could, at some point in time, because of extreme high usage of them, are going to become, obsolete. I mean, they're not even going to help you in a situation like that. You're not going to be able to get through, or whatever reasons it is. And I mean, I don't know a lot about technology, but I know that you can't just think that that's going to be your savior, that cell phone, because you have it on you. It could get wet. It could get lost. I mean, like I said, just the over use of the waves or whatever.
And another thing with that maybe to think about is as far as cell phones, maybe having an extra charger in there, because you may get stuck in your basement and you may be there for a long time, and you may not be able to get out to reach people for a while. And I'm sure you're on your phone a lot or looking at the weather. If that phone dies, you could be in some trouble.
People are going to be trying to reach you. You want to bring one of those, if you can get one of those those kind of stored battery chargers. It's the first thing that someone asks when they come to a shelter now. When we set up a shelter, regardless of the scenario, is do you have outlets? But that's just where we're at, and I think that's how, if you do get your phone, the phone's working, and you can make an emergency call, you'll want, it has to be charged. So.
Yep. And they have portable chargers that you can take that will charge without electricity. Obviously, there probably won't be electricity at that point.
And I like the idea of the radio too, because I can turn on the radio and listen to the weather, and I'm not dependent on my cell phone, whose battery I'm going to run down. You just tucked a ton of stuff in there. You've got batteries on the side, because extra batteries for anything that you have. Do you have any other great things in there we want to see?
Food. You want a little bit of food. You'll want toothbrush. I mean, some sundries, that kind of thing. You know what you need for that kind of stuff. What else? If you might need some tools. I mean, that really is the case. Something to bring water in. You can't have enough water. I mean, you have to think a couple of days ahead of time, because you don't know when either you're going to be able to go back or when the lights might come back on. It's going to be, to plan for a short-term situation and evacuation, it's better to plan that ahead of time, because you don't want to be the person scrambling at the Walmart or calling 911 when 911's dealing with every other thing, or if it's a life-threatening thing.
Sure.
And no matter how well organized I am, I'm not going to be if I'm panicked and trying to figure out how to save my family. Yeah. So one thing I do is we have tools in the vehicles. We have things set aside so that we know if something happens that we have the things that we want. Love that you included the important documents, because a lot of people don't even think about that, but that's very important if you need to access accounts or you need to be able to prove who you are, which is very common today. You do need, and it's just copies. And stick them all in a duffel bag, keep them somewhere where you can grab it as you run out the door and you've got everything you need.
I think that part, just a small part, making sure you have the conversation ahead of time too with your family members, especially if you have young people in your life. It's going to be scary, but you will have talked about it. There will be some things that they know that this is not an exercise. This is a thing. We're trying to stay safe. The more you talk about it, the better prepared you're going to be.
And practice, make practice fun.
Yep.
And do those. You must do those with your
Same
kids.
with fire drills, how to get out of your house, the practice. And you think about, in a fire situation or in a disaster situation, you look at how much stuff he has in this bag. There's no way you can pack that when that warning hits. So
Right.
it's got to be done ahead of time.
Ahead of time.
Right.
There's no way you can talk to your kids about how to get out of the house safely and having a good meeting spot when the smoke detector is going off. That's not the time to do it. During a tornado is not the time to pack this. And that's
Yep.
why we talk so much about preparation and being prepared for these things.
Yep, and feeling like you can't pack prescriptions ahead of time. Mine come for a month. There's to put 3 days of prescriptions into a bag to make sure that I have them is just, that's just basic
Sure.
safety, especially if it comes to high blood pressure or nitroglycerin.
Diabetes.
The things that
big
are
one.
really going to make a difference
Yep.
with your health. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Justin. I love that you have all of that stuff.
You can pour it
I
all
can't
out of
believe
it.
he's
One
still got more than
He
half a
does.
bag left in there.
He does. He
We
still
do.
has-
The redcross.org. There. You can find lists of the things we'd recommend, and I'm sure police and fire would have great suggestions for what you should have ahead of time and how to have those hard conversations with your family
Sure.
before it's the worst thing that could happen.
And you're never too young. I have girls in their 20s. My daughters are in their 20s the grandkids, and we all have a plan. We have a plan also, in case something were to arise because we're family. So, and it doesn't hurt to have that. It may seem a little extreme maybe at times, but better to be prepared than not.
And again, if you have young kids, if you make it a game, if you make it fun, that it's something that they remember, and if something serious happens, they're okay, so then you can stop to grab the bag and you can do the other things that are necessary.
Sure.
Right? Thank you guys so much. Lots and lots of summer safety tips, from protecting my property to making sure me and my family are safe in storms, and to reminding me why I don't want a bonfire in my backyard 10 feet from my house that's 20 feet high.
Not
Or
a
is that
idea.
good?
That's not a
That's
good
not
idea.
Not a good idea.
It's
And
pretty bad.
I do joke about some of this stuff, but the fact is that when we talk about it away from this kind of a situation, that's exactly what we're doing, is we're joking about how that's never going to happen to me and I can handle any fire. And then something happens and suddenly it isn't so funny. So when I joke about it, it's not so much about making light of what they're doing. It's about keeping us aware that the next time we joke about it, maybe we should take it a little bit more seriously. So Justin Kern, thank you for being here
Thanks
from
for
the
having
Red
me.
Cross.
Thanks for watching.
I hope I never see you at a disaster at my house.
I hope the same. You can
Or
invite me
any
to
of
your,
my
you can
friends
invite
or
me to your
families.
deck one of these days, though.
Hey, I got a big day. It goes all the way around for watching storms. Actually, and we use it. I'm going to tell you, I use it, and I watch them coming because I have horses. And I want to make sure that I have enough time to take care of my family, which includes my horses.
Yeah.
So that isn't so much, I'm not out there with my cell phone taking pictures because I wouldn't know how to anyway. But it really is about watching out for my family. Andrew Whitman, always good to see you. Thank you for being on here.
Welcome.
Diana Flatoff, good to meet you.
Nice
Glad
to
you
meet
were
you.
here too.
Thank you.
And I think it's important for us to remember that you guys are out there before a storm trying to take care of us if something serious happens or if we haven't taken care of ourselves. So let's be easier on them and take care of ourselves in advance. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Happening Waupaca. I am Joni, and we'll see you next time.